I started as community development specialist. 2014, I worked for the city for 3 years. And when I was hired, one of the reasons I hired was to help with the 2015-2019 consolidated plan. So Chris Lucier and I designed that process and did it through. And then I worked for senior millage for 6 years and I came back to the city. So I'm excited to lead this process. We've done we've been monitored and audited. So there's been some delay in getting us started. So the consolidated plan is due to HUD May 15th. And so we have to publish it online 30 days ahead of time. So April 15th is really our due date. We need to have a public hearing, probably 2 public hearings, a few community conversations, a survey, some consultations. So this really today is our kickoff to the planning for the 2025 to 29, the 5-year plan of how the city of Battle Creek will use its community development block grant and home investment partnership programs, both federal funding that we receive through an allocation. So and if we can get started, Darcy, why don't you go next?
Yeah, sure. My name is Darcy Schmidt, and I am the Planning and Zoning Supervisor for the city, and my team is responsible for anything having to do with land use. And for this particular project, the master plan is on the same 5-year update calendar as the consolidated plan, so it really fits in nicely with what Helen and I are both working toward this year and every 5 years. As everyone knows, housing is every community is very short on housing, and this is a very important topic to work through. And with the cost of housing, we really need to come up with some creative ideas. So our team will help make whatever ideas we come up with or your group has come up with, make them work through the zoning changes and master plan, as using it as a goal or objective in the master plan. So, okay, Talia, do you want to go next?
I'm Talia Champlin, and I'm with Remax Parrott Associates and also a resident of the city of Battle Creek.
Thank you.
I guess I'll go next. Hi, everyone. I'm Vanessa Hernandez. I am a community development specialist with the city of Battle Creek. I am one of the 2 bilingual speakers for the city. I work with the community development block grant, which includes public services and housing. I work with Voces, Burma Center, Swahili community. This will be the first time I participate in the consolidated plan, so super excited about that.
Elizabeth, do you want to introduce yourself?
Sure. Hi, everyone. My name's Elizabeth Garcia. Oh, I'm so sorry. Wrong one.
That's all right. We can come back.
You go ahead, Elizabeth. You're more prepared than me.
I'll pass it to you afterwards then. How about that? Elizabeth Garcia, she, her, hers, the co-executive director for the Battle Creek Coalition for Truth, Racial Healing, and Transformation, and a resident here of Battle Creek, and been working with some educational and advocacy around attainable housing.
Great, thank you.
Okay, Elizabeth Schulteis. I'm with Battle Creek Community Foundation. I'm like kind of quasi representing Mary today. And we have supported housing for the last several years, being a fiduciary on HUD or pass-through money through BIJTA. But now NIDC is taking on all that work, and we're looking at how we can play a role as a grant funder in this space.
Great.
And we are all very grateful for the Milton happening because of the taking of the Battle Creek Community Foundation. So thank you, Elizabeth, for playing in the housing space.
Thanks.
Let's bounce back up to Quentin before we overlook him.
Yes, hi, I'm Quinton Hay. I'm with the Calhoun County Land Bank Authority. My title is the Housing Projects Coordinator. So we obviously deal with post-foreclosure properties, mostly vacant properties, but we do have some structures that we deal with, both residential and commercial and industrial. And yeah, we're building 4 new houses through a MISHTA grant and have a lot of different pieces of the housing ecosystem that we're focused on.
So where are you building those houses, Quentin?
So those, two of them will be on the corner of Bowen and Howland Ave. And then the other two will be on opposing ends of the Greenwood, just one block over. So Greenwood and Howland, and then Greenwood and Kendall.
So are those separate from Pastor French's work?
Yes. Yep. So those we
Have been
used,
started?
they have not been started. We were given a grant agreement and that was executed. And that was, we used the properties that were voted on by our advisory committee in Washington Heights for development and used their input for the infill strategy.
Nice. Do you have a buyer for those homes yet?
We don't. So once those are completed, they will be, two of them will be sold to the 60% or below area median income. And then the other two will be sold to 80 to 120% area median income. So once those are complete, I think a little before they're complete, we'll be going through the process of income qualifying and getting buyers connected with those.
What will the prices be, Quentin?
Say that again?
What will the prices be?
So they will be affordable to each income level. A bit hard to say on an exact sales price right now, but they will be affordable for the 60% and then the 80 to 120.
And the old question is, how much is it going to cost you to construct them?
Quite a bit. Definitely. I want to say it's around 250 a square foot is what we were going with. Still kind of the pro forma numbers, so those might be changed a little bit. But yeah, looking around 250 a square foot. And I think so. Two of the houses will be 1,000 square feet, and then the other two will be a little larger for the 80 to 120 at 1,400 square feet.
Great. Mike, can you introduce yourself? We've got you on mute.
All flustered. Can you hear me now?
You can.
We're good.
Great. I am Mike King with Habitat for Humanity, Battle Creek. I'm sorry, I'm a little bit late to the show here. What is the question? What are we doing?
Just to introduce yourself and if you've been involved in the master plan or the consolidated plan in the past, and then share your Quentin just wowed us that he's building 3 infill housing, which is part of the reutilization strategy that we've all been struggling with. So it is a lot to follow up the land bank and Quentin, but Mike, you wow us.
Well, well, we are building new houses. And we just happened to come across a parcel of land through the county tax sale in Urbandale. So we bought a property, we split the property, and we built one house on that property. It's a 1,200 square foot home built on a wooden slab with a cement foundation. And we moved a family in there in October. And in the process of building there in Urbandale, we noticed that there was a large lot beside where we were building. And we were like, well, what is this lot all about? So we inquired, and it was a church. There was a church, had a building there, but it had a fire. And so we were able to buy that lot, and we split that lot into 4 parcels.
Nice.
And so we're building 3 more houses there as we speak. And then we also are building a house on McKinley Street, and that's an infill house that we bought the property from the land bank, and so that's actually being built by the Career Center, the Calhoun Area Career Center, thanks to Jamie from the Kellogg Foundation. And we are in the process of trying to buy 2 more lots from the land bank on Hubbard Street. So that's our goal going forward, is to build a couple of houses there on Hubbard Street, right beside where we did a rehab a couple years ago, a very large rehab. And now we hope to build a couple new houses in that area as well. So that's all we're doing, a couple things.
So And Mike, how much did 12 North Cedar cost you? And then what was it appraised at?
So our total cost was right around, and I have to thank Helen for the Chodo money as well. Our total cost on 12 North Cedar was in the ballpark of 150, maybe a tad more than 150, and we sold it appraised at 165. So keep in mind, we figure about $77,000 of volunteer labor on our houses as well, and some other donated items too.
So
Great.
the city of Battle Creek has invested in 2 properties with Habitat for Humanity with our home investment partnership dollars. We've invested 130,000 for the cost of the development, and then it'll be up to 13,000 for down payment assistance for a low-income family to be able to afford the house in the long term. So we're behind in our spending of the home investment partnership program, but very excited about this partnership.
Can I ask Mike a quick question?
Sure.
Sure.
The 150 that you've got into the Cedar Street house, is that with the 70,000 of volunteer work, or would we
No,
add that? Okay.
that would have to be added on to get the full value. So I did with the full value of donations and in-kind labor and other donations, I believe it's right around 260 to build one of these houses. And they are 3-bedroom, 1.5 bathroom.
And it appraised for 165.
165. Yep.
So they're about 900 square feet?
They're 1,200 square feet.
1,200 square feet, okay.
Good stuff.
Terrific. So
Kathy.
Jamie, can you go next? Thank you, Mike.
Sure. And I apologize. I'm keeping my camera off because I keep getting unstable internet messages. But I'm Jamie Schreiner. I'm a program officer with the W.K. Kellogg Foundation. I've been here for about 5, going on 6 years now. Prior to working for the foundation, I ran a statewide nonprofit that primarily focused in on working with place-based nonprofit affordable housing developers. So housing is definitely in my background and in my heart. And Helen, I just wanted to also point out too the plan that we worked on. That was actually a partnership between the Kellogg Foundation, the City of Battle Creek, and BCU, with significant contributions coming from the land bank, and then also lists coming in to help the community implement the plan. So we're excited to have it. It has some really great information in there, but it was definitely a larger partnership as well. So happy to be here and talk with all of you, but I'm going to go back off camera and hoping to stay online.
Thank you, Jamie. Kathy.
Hi there. Like Jamie, I'm having dicey internet days, so that's why I'm staying off camera too. Kathy Antea, I'm a community resident. I do a lot of work at the Share Center as a volunteer, and I do a lot of work with the unhoused folks in our community. So I'm looking from that perspective. I'm a real fan of permanent supportive housing, and I know we're struggling mightily with that. I'm really excited about the stuff that Quentin and Mike were both talking about because that infill housing is just amazing. And I'm really supportive of the work that Dr. Pastor Monique is doing in Washington Heights. I'm most familiar with the work that she's doing, and I really love that. And I'd like to do whatever I can to support this. And yes, Helen, I've been involved in the 5-year planning thing before. As far as you know me, I have opinions on just about everything. So just ask. Thank you so much for inviting me.
Thank you, Kathy, for being here. Lori.
Hi, I'm Rick Kendall, and I am with LISC, and I'm actually sitting in today on behalf of Sonia Dean, who is ill and she can't attend, so just acting as the ears for her.
Thank you for coming.
Thank you.
And we have someone else on with a 313 423-4154 number. Would you like to introduce yourself? Maybe not. All right.
So this is the consolidated plan here, and by participating on this, you will be on the cover page and you will be part of our steering committee on the cover page of the 25 to 29 consolidated plan. So I just want to know you will be immortalized in our planning document by participating in this process. So I think that Darcy, unless you have more to say, I think we just start the slideshow.
No, we'll get that pulled up.
Thank you, everybody, for attending and giving us your time. We know that time is like our most important asset, and we want to use all the expertise we have here in the room.
Okay, let me skip these two. Whoops. There we go.
This is the front of our. Can you go back, Darcy?
Yep.
So this is the front of our consolidated plan for the last one. It's required by HUD. We do it every 5 years, and that the citizen engagement process is very important. And so we'll create a separate report called the citizen engagement process that explains all that we'll also have to submit to HUD. And it establishes our priorities on how we're going to spend our dollars. And this is what we get as the Community Development Division for the City of Battle Creek. We get about $1.2 million a year for the Community Development Block Grant. We get about the home program, it averages, it can be as low as 250 and it could be as high as 400,000. But on average, we get about 300,000 a year. We have spent that mainly on tenant-based rental assistance with Neighborhoods, Inc. And then we've spent it with a Chodo project. Habitat for Humanity has renovated homes for us that we funded. And then we've also done these 2 new homes in Urbandale, 25 North Cedar and 273 West Spalding. I have a significant amount of unspent. During COVID, our division experienced a lot of staff turnover, and we just had unspent dollars. So I have about $500,000 that I want to release with an RFP for infill housing. The cost of rebuilding, it might pay for 2. I know a number of organizations are interested in using those dollars. And then I have $200,000 that has been reserved for down payment assistance. And I know the Land Bank and Neighborhoods Inc., other organizations are interested in that. So it's an RFP that I just have been unable to issue. It will get issued sometime in January or February. And then my plan going forward, depending on the results of our consolidated plan, is to continue to fund the tenant-based rental assistance program and 1 or 2 of Habitat's projects as our community housing development organization. Next, we have our lead abatement program. So we have received for the last 8 years, $1.5 million that renovates 25 homes with kids that have been lead poisoned. All of our referrals now come from the health department. We have to have kids who are 6 and under who are lead poisoned, but Community Action does those countywide, and then our office renovates in the city of Battle Creek. So we've done about 185 homes countywide in the last 8 years. And then we have about $1.1 million left in a $3 million program that is another HUD abatement program. So it costs, the average cost of abatement is about $57,000, and we replace windows and healing paint on the outside of homes. The health department works with families to understand how to clean better and the lead risks and how to eat better to reduce the lead levels of kids. We had $1 million in home coronavirus that the CARES Act provided to us that we gave to shelters. And then we had another $1 million in home we got through the American Rescue Act. We're reserving a about 380,000 for Upholdings, which is a permanent supportive housing development on East Michigan. Hopefully it's going to be 55 units of one bedroom for permanent supportive housing to help our chronically homeless street individuals. We're waiting for the low-income housing tax credit. Twice the Upholdings have submitted this proposal, and it's come back right at the funding line. It wasn't funded by low-income housing, but it was right. So our hope is this third round is our magic, and that they will get funded, but we're not. They submitted October 1st, and those announcements will be made March, April, maybe early May. So some of that, and then we administer in partnership with the Battle Creek Housing, or the Battle Creek Public Schools, a housing incentive program where teachers can get 10,000 if they're outside of our target area, or 20,000 if they're in our target area to purchase a new home. And we'll help them with $375 a month subsidy for the first year as a rental. So it's been a very popular program to help. The W.K. Kellogg Foundation funds that. They funded it for 9 years, and it's made a big impact for Battle Creek Public Schools. So those are the programs that our office administers. Most of them are federally funded, except for the local one. So we just have to, this is part of our community process, getting experts like yourself in housing to come together so we can collaboratively work together and identify needs. Next. The survey is going to go out in the water. A link's going to go out in the water bills. It's been once in the shopper, and then this coming week it'll be, we have a color ad and then a public notice about the survey and about our public session coming up next Thursday. So if you look at, can you go back, Darcy? So this is what I need to come up with at the end of this process. So I think that we'll do an in-person session in March or maybe February to come up with what these priorities are. So the city's priorities were vibrant neighborhoods, vibrancy downtown, increased resident community engagement, and then workforce development. So that was 2015 to 19. It's interesting in 20 to 24 that we didn't talk about transportation or workforce development. We talked about ensuring that housing is safe, affordable, and accessible, that we activate underutilized land, which is really exciting to have Quentin and Mike share that utilization of that underused land, because we have lots of vacant properties, but the incentive to redevelop is just not there. Alleviating poverty, which is all about transportation and housing, and then in community engagement through collaboration, empowerment, affirmatively further fair housing, and restore vitality to low-income neighborhoods. So those are the goals, and they're pretty broad. We want broad goals that we can use. So this is how last year we get about $1.2 million, but during COVID, our office underspent. We spent a lot of time spending the CARES Act and the American Rescue Act dollars. And so funds didn't go out into the community at the rate that they should have. So last year we spent $2.1 million, most of that in minor home repair. So 72% of our community development block grant dollars last year was spent in the minor home repair program. BOSAs did outreach to Spanish-speaking individuals and helping with housing problems. Legal Services did an eviction diversion program to help homeless folks or people that are about to get evicted to preserve their housing. We spent about $241 paying for all of our salaries. And then code compliance has been, for a long time, the CDBG program pays about 40% of the total budget for community development or for code compliance, but in our 5 target neighborhoods, in our neighborhood planning councils in the core neighborhoods, we pay for code compliance. So about 12% of CDBG has been used for code compliance. Next. And this is the coronavirus dollars that I told you about, a little bit over $1 million. A lot of it went for rental assistance at neighborhoods. The Battle Creek shelter was supported. Summit Point rental assistance was supported. The Share Center, VOSIS, Community Action, case management through neighborhoods, case management through Summit Point, Legal Services, eviction diversion, and then Safe Place received hotel vouchers. And this money was all spent in 20 and 21. We finished spending in the 23 year. So go forward, please. The Home Investment Partnership, we got a little bit over 300,000. We only spent 152,000. Some of that was on city salaries. Some of that was on the tenant-based rental assistance. And then the rest was through one homeowner rehab that we did in the Washington Heights neighborhood. This shows you our American Rescue Act dollars. We got $1 million overall. We spent in 2023, 367,000. We're reserving, the top line is what we're reserving for the permanent supportive housing. The Haven, we fund case management and their life recovery programs. Neighborhoods, we fund a case manager to help people find housing when they're using the tenant-based rental assistance through the home program. The Share Center, we've been funding their outreach worker and vouchers, and then Gracious Homes, a case manager, and then our staff part of it, because our office is totally federally funded. So the next slide. So this shows you the impact of our minor home repair. We did 85 because we usually spend about $500,000 plus 100,000 of our staffing time. So we spent $1.5 million to use up older dollars, and we helped 85, and we created a wait list. So we're actually closed to new applications right now because we're only going to be able to help about 35 families this year, and we had a wait list. So we're closed until the next year of funding, but half of the money goes to replace roofs up to 25,000, and the other repairs are water heaters, furnaces, and a lot of step repairs, a lot of rebuilding steps. We don't do ramps. Habitat and Milestone on Disability Network usually does ramps, but we've done a lot of rebuilding of front steps for lower income homeowners. A lot of lower income folks have owned their homes for a long time and just have not had the funds to do maintenance. So the minor home repair program is coupled with our code compliance effort to really improve neighborhood conditions so that low income homeowners are able to do the repairs. Every time we replace a roof that's leaking, we prevent a vacant house when that family either dies or moves because of their leaking roof. So the ability to fund roof replacement has been a key strategy that the city has used to support low-income homeowners. And really hundreds, probably thousands of roofs have been replaced in the last 30 years of community development block grant. We actually have been doing rehab. This is the 50th year anniversary. In 1974, Congress passed the community development and created a bunch of competitive programs under the formula grant program that it is now. And so the city has had the program since the very beginning. So this is code enforcement. It shows the code enforcement did 7,867 code enforcements in all areas of the city. And the highlighted color places are our neighborhood planning councils. They're the target areas for the community development block grant program. So exterior violations, rental inspections, vacant building registrations, inoperable vehicles, front yard parking, and junk and trash accumulation. Code compliance is a tool for neighborhoods to address problems in their neighborhood. And without it, the city wouldn't be able to address problem properties. This is included just so that people understand the income limits. We can't help homeowners that are above this, but this is the 80% of area median income is where we target. So 120 of area median income is workforce housing, but the 80 is where the minor home repair program and the neighborhoods, our neighborhoods have to have at least 50% area of that consist of low and moderate income households to be able to consider a target area. And Urbandale has been increasing its median income. So there's some question whether or not it'll remain one of our target areas because it's the housing values and the income of residents have increased over time. So the next one. So this just looks at families in Battle Creek. You know, our median household income is rather low. Most median income people qualify as low and moderate income because they're a little bit over 80% of area median income. The median household size is 3.2. And we always want to look at the working poor, the asset limited, income constrained, employed. The United Way calls it the ALICE population. And so 52% of Battle Creek households are in that category of they might be employed, they might be stable, but one car, one sickness, an injury is going to send them into poverty because they don't have the assets to deal with the stuff that life gives them. So 18% of households are earning below the poverty line, which is pretty low. And then 34% are below the basic cost of living for the county. Next slide. So we're looking at, HUD looks at cost burden. So this is the number of owners in Battle Creek that are cost burdened and the number of renters. So your cost burden when you spend more than 50% of your income you're severely cost burdened when you spend more of your income in for housing costs. Next slide.
Oops.
So our homeownership is pretty stable. It's below the state of Michigan and it's below the federal, the homeownership rate in Battle Creek, but it's decreased slightly, but it's been very stable. And the number of vacants has decreased somewhat, but about 53% of Battle Creek households actually own their home. Next slide, Darcy. So this is the percentages of individuals with their income. So the poorer you are, the more you're paying in housing. So, and it's gone down, the number of cost burdened has gone down in the last 10 years for most household types. So renter, as homeownership has gone down, renters have gone up. And one of the things it's a nut to crack, but how do we reduce the public's resistance to rental housing? You know, all rental housing is seen as not good. I live in Windermere subdivision. It's pretty upper income. Keystone Lakes is high income rental housing that's our county needs more of, our city needs more of. And I had neighbors move away. They were so opposed when Keystone Lakes doubled the size of their rental housing. And there's never been any, people attribute low behaviors to renters that just is not fair. And so just how to reduce overall the public's opposition is part of, we need to decrease people's opposition to renter housing because I was a renter till I was 32. My mom and dad have rented their house their whole entire life. It's not everyone could be a homeowner and but everybody needs housing and everybody starts somewhere. So that sort of like homelessness. Your sisters, there's lots of relatives that could be homeless. It's we can't see people renters as other. We have to see them as part of our community. So this is renter occupied, shows that renters are much more cost burdened than homeowners, especially low income. 41% in 2010, and 31% of our renters that make less than 20,000 are cost burdened. Next one. So when you look, the Upjohn Foundation's always makes this point when they do their economic updates about how Battle Creek's labor force participation is much lower than the state of Michigan or overall in Michigan, that we have of all of our adults 16 and over, only 54% of the adults are participating in the labor force. So they're either disabled, we have a higher rate of disability, but they're disabled or retired or not working. So that labor force participation affects our incomes. Next slide. So educational attainment is for kids or for people that are 25 and over. Next slide. So the highest educational attainment, this shows most, and it's getting better, that most folks have a high school diploma or a little bit of education. So high turnover residents is a factor in neighborhood decline. Tax sales at tax auction also show vulnerability of the neighborhood, and demolitions. We've reduced the number of demolitions, but demolitions have affected the character of our neighborhoods. While removing the vacant houses have protected the look, it's also improves quality or neighborhood conditions when we demolish those houses. But so it's just been activating that underused land has been our challenge. Next slide. So this is demolitions in our 5 core neighborhood planning councils in the last 10 years. So Post Franklin, we've had 112. In Washington Heights, we've had 135. So this is just the last 10 years of demolitions. In Urbandale, we only had 26 houses demolished. Next one. In property sales, how often properties turn over. It shows that under the Lakeview, NPC 3 is the numbered streets near Colburn, kind of the middle part of the Lakeview and Battle Creek, and that's had the most turnover in houses. And then properties sold at tax auction. This is over the last 10 years, the number. So in North Central, our area that was redlined, we had 60 houses sold at tax auction. So, next slide. So this shows you the total demolitions in the 4 neighborhood or the 5 neighborhoods, and the property sales, how many have turned over in the last, I guess, 4 years in tax auction. So state equalized value shows the total taxable value in our community. So the next slide. So this is the mean state equalized value. Washington Heights, you can really see the effect of redlining, that the mean equalized value is much lower than in our other neighborhoods, and that Urbandale is a much stronger, of all the 5 core neighborhoods, is the strongest in our housing values. So that taxable value is very important to city government because it funds us, and it is going up. So next slide. So one of the key points of the housing study that the Battle Creek community, or that the Kellogg Foundation and LISC and BCU and the city developed, was we don't have enough choice. We don't have enough choice in our housing. We have a lot of single family homes. We don't have very many multifamily, 2 units, the choice very small. And if we have more duplexes and other types of infill, smaller multifamily, it increases the diversity in our neighborhoods and perhaps would make things more affordable for folks. So that's our presentation about our needs assessment. And then the question that we were going to ask at the tables was, what does a vital neighborhood look like to you? And we've been struggling with what's the right neighbor, we want to break up into tables, have a discussion for 15 minutes, and then have a readout session and put things up on the wall. So is this the right question? What is the right question for us to ask at the tables at our community conversation? Any feedback on the slideshow on how things are presented? What else we should add?
Would you please put the question back up?
Sure.
So A big challenge that we have faced in a lot of neighborhood conversations is I think all of us and probably everybody in a community conversation um, would know a vital neighborhood when they saw one and have an idea of what their vital neighborhood looks like. And there, we would find a lot of common ground. So I'm not sure that we would get extra input by asking that question. What we learned at the last time that we had a community conversation ourselves, the Battle Creek Area Association of Realtors and TRHT partnered with Washington Heights Community Methodist, had two great speakers in. And what we learned was that the neighborhoods that were redlined in the past are still suffering from what Cheryl Cashin called opportunity hoarding. We're still instead of taking rental housing, putting it next to Windermere as an example, because you used that example, Helen. We're putting it next to places where we're tearing down commercial buildings. In other words, we're putting them on the Kmart site where we're tearing down Michigan paperboard across the street. And so that doesn't, that keeps the poor people where we have put them in the past. I'm just being blunt here to possibly help us move forward. And it keeps keeps the white neighborhoods, the traditionally white or non-redlined neighborhoods, from being infiltrated. And I know those are all triggering ways to say those things, but if we don't face those things, then we'll continue. And until all of our citizens are respected and get to live in vibrant, productive neighborhoods, we will have the same problems we've already got. So I think a question that's something more along the lines of, what are you personally willing to advocate with your neighbors to make sure that everybody lives in a vital, productive neighborhood? Something along those lines. That's way too many words, and you can wordsmith it.
So like, what is missing? What is your neighborhood missing? Like, I've been struggling with what the productive conversation that gets us new thoughts and new consensus.
And gets everyone speaking.
Yes.
I'm very interested in other people's ideas.
That's a very good point.
It sounds like I'm being grumpy and negative. Good for us for getting some rental housing put in on the blue light spot, but let's call it what it is too.
And the rental housing in the blue light spot hasn't moved forward because there's a gap in the capital stack, and so they haven't been able to move forward because they can't get all their financing. So they got the low income housing tax credit, which is the major, but it's always that it's so expensive to build housing.
Well, we just saw the gap in both Mike's numbers and Quentin's numbers. It costs $225,000 to $275,000 to build a house that you have to sell for $165,000 so that somebody can afford it. And I mean, it's not magic. I'll repeat Sonia's words. It's not magic. It's just numbers.
Right. So Elizabeth Garcia says, how are we diversifying our neighborhoods? What would you like? What would you like that is currently there? What do you like that is currently there? What would you want to see improved in your neighborhood?
Good question.
Sometimes keeping it simple opens up for more imagination. I'm also wondering, and I don't know if right now is the time and place for it, um, of how are we um, kind of negotiating with developers of if you're going to be developing a commercial or a apartment complex or housing complex, how many of them have to be to be given to individuals at a certain economic level? Um, how do we kind of negotiate that with people and with developers? Because I think that's an opportunity for us to be like, it's beneficial for you, it's beneficial for us, it's beneficial for the community as a whole.
And there are ways to do it, but we have to the city of East Lansing, which is a completely different community, but they did not have any housing that would hardly any housing that would meet um, medium to low income, and they actually allowed buildings to go higher in certain developments as long as they had a certain percentage of low to moderate income housing. And I mean, that's just one example, but they put that right into their zoning ordinances. The difference here is in East Lansing, there was such a desire to continue to build student housing that those student housing developers could afford to put that into the the performa to make it work. Where here we are lucky to get anyone able to build, like, as you know, I mean, there's such a huge gap between what it costs to build a unit and what you can sell it for. So we are having a very difficult time getting people interested to even develop market rate housing. So, yeah, those are good questions, Elizabeth. How do we, when we do have them, how do we get them to, we have to make that performer work for them somehow. So it would have to be being able to go up a little bit higher or increasing the density. So those are all things that can be done. And those are things that can be looked at to make that happen. And where do we find that happy medium where we still entice people to come develop in the city, housing in the city, and still be able to get what we need with the variety of income properties all within one project. It's really important to be able to do that and to have it not be any different, not to be able to know which unit or house or whatever is the moderate to low income housing. And it's been done in other communities.
So the Battle Creek Housing Commission is going to be hiring a new deputy director for development. And something they've not been able to do in the past is project basing their vouchers to pay for the operating costs. So that, because there's always, with lower income housing, there's the building of it and then there's the operating of it and then making it affordable. So I think there is some systems change in progress, but systems change is slow. And we're building off the work that TRHT and the Battle Creek Area Association of Realtors have done, trying to create knowledge and trying to work at that home ownership rate and getting folks into home ownership and to get awareness of the discrimination that has happened with our core neighborhoods. How do we build off what you guys have done in this process? It's just a question. And then is the minor home repair programs, most of our money is spent with the minor home repair program. Is that still how we should be spending our money? We have a $500,000 reserved for a childcare facility for a youth village that's kind of been stalled because of contamination of the land that it was going to be built on. So, going forward, how should we be using our community development block grants to catalyze improved neighborhood conditions? We have a basic level of rental safety because we have a rental registration program. Every rental should be registered with the city, and the city goes out and inspects to make sure that there's a basic standard met by landlords who are renting houses in the city. So it gives us an enforcement tool, and it gives renters who are having problems a way to work with their landlord. Kathy?
Thanks. Thank you. So Helen, I have to answer your question first about the monies that are being spent to repair homeowners' furnaces or roofs and et cetera, et cetera. And I know several people who have received monies to do that. And the first thing is it's an amazing transformation for those folks. And I also believe that keeping in their homes currently. Uh-oh, all you guys froze. Am I frozen?
You froze slightly, but
So
you're back. You're back with us.
Okay. So yeah, I totally think that those are dollars extremely well spent because I'm pretty sure it's cheaper to keep people in a home than it is to find them a new home and go all over again. So I'm a huge proponent of that small home repair funding that you guys do every day. I think it's amazing. I need to go back. Talia, I totally agree with what you said. Thank you for saying it so bluntly and straight up, because that's the truth. We try and put, again, I'm just going to say it. I would try and put them poor people, them dirty people all by themselves over somewhere else. Well, guess what? That's not conducive for helping people lift themselves out of poverty or lift themselves out of their life's challenges. So it does need to be integrated into all of our neighborhoods all around our community. And I love Elizabeth's question, how are we diversifying our neighborhoods, as potentially something we could ask folks. But before we ask that question, I think we need to emphasize, and this could be a slide, Helen, how diversity, and Talia, back me up on this because you're the real estate redliner idea person. But how does diversity improve the stability of our neighborhoods? And I think we can look at all kinds of data that shows racially mixed neighborhoods tend to hold up, thrive better than all people of color neighborhoods. And that's also probably true of poor white neighborhoods, I would suspect too. But how does diversity help improve our neighborhood, both from a stability standpoint, from a cost standpoint, not just racial diversity, but economic diversity, as well as having old folks and younger families living there too. So different shapes and sizes of houses, I think. And that's where infill housing, I think, could be a real bonus. And those are just my opinions, and I better shut up and let someone else talk. Thank you so much.
One of the things, Kathy, that's a good point. One of the things that is difficult right now is we have a lot of single family residential neighborhoods. And to build a single family house, it can be done, but it can't be done for all economic price ranges, right? So some communities are looking at allowing duplexes. Like, this gives an opportunity for someone to own that duplex, live in one half, maybe rent the other half. It gives it economically, it's going to be cheaper than a single family home. So it will house more people in a neighborhood, and you can make it look similar to the other houses. It does not have to look distinctly like a duplex. It can look like a regular house with different, it can be a flat, it can be a side-by-side townhome. There are a lot of models out there to draw from that could act as infill and diversify the price range of these homes. So those are things that we need to look at as well, and things that whatever we find out from this first discussion through the consolidated plan, that will help give material to, we have an RFP out for a consultant to help us pull some of this information together that's not in the consolidated plan and start talking more physically and where these houses could be and what they could look like, and talk through some of that and talk about the actual price of the cost of what it would take to build these units. So those are things that can be done, and that would definitely help to diversify neighborhoods. Other than that, you're talking about neighborhoods where maybe they're on the border of two single-family residential neighborhoods, and you allow maybe 3-story or 2.5-story units that are house 4 different families. So things that are kind of still fit into the single-family neighborhood, but are slightly more dense. So again, I think Helen, yeah, Talia?
Just when you finish, I was just letting you know that
that's fine, yep.
Okay. With another group, I've done extensive work on that and have some drawings and some neighborhood plans that I could share. That's one thing.
That would be great.
Building on what Kathy was saying, Helen started us out relatively early on by saying, what's the answer to majority neighborhoods going not in my backyard? That's kind of where we started. And then Kathy circled back to it and suggested that you add a slide. I'm gonna just throw out some wording, not saying you have to do this exactly, but add a slide that documents how well supported neighborhood diversity serves the vitality of the community. So some documentation on that. Yep. And then maybe a question, something along the lines of, what information would you need to support revitalization of previously underserved neighborhoods? So, because if you live in a majority minority neighborhood, you already know what your challenges are. And you don't need to be told that there's opportunity hoarding and et cetera. What we really need is a change in people with income and advantages believing and wanting all neighborhoods to be well supported. And I think so. Maybe a worthwhile question is, what information do you need to help you believe that?
That's a good point.
Don't know if it's a good point, but just want to throw it out there.
Right.
Yeah, I tend to agree with all of the statements around kind of the popular thought around apartments and rentals. And I definitely think if we can show people that they don't always have to be kind of what our stereotypical apartment building looks like, which is large parking lot, the 4 stories tall. I think if we can work in a way to kind of steer people into different ideas of what apartments could be, I mean, minus a for rent sign, if a house is for rent, you probably wouldn't know just driving past. So I think kind of showing them that duplexes and quads are a really helpful way of getting that diversity of housing while still maintaining that single family detached appearance. And I know the Michigan Municipal League has done a lot of work with the missing middle housing. They actually have a pattern book is what they called it, kind of like the old Sears house pattern books. But they kind of go through different ways to incorporate those designs into existing single family neighborhoods.
And that is a valuable tool that we can pull from as well.
there's been some dreaming at the city about creating some housing based off those drawings to kind of show the way, doing an open house and convincing people. Stetler Builders just built a house for Mary Fields on Lathrop. So exciting. Could that happen to other investors, small, taking an info lot and building a house? It would improve everybody's property values all the way around. It would start an upward spiral of housing values, which would benefit everybody. So, like, how to incentivize that with our limited amount of federal dollars is, what we're looking for. And Jimmy had to go, but they're looking at establishing a trust fund. And how does that trust fund incentivize that kind of upward spiral of housing values in our core neighborhood? Like with MPC2 having the lowest state equalized value in the city, it shows the effect of redlining. And how do we change that? So, Kathy?
Thanks, Helen. And Quentin for that information. Helen, you mentioned, and we know it's expensive to build any types of these infill housings. Is there any way we could partner with the trade schools, especially the ones in Battle Creek that might do labor for training? And I know that's awfully simplistic, but would that be helpful? Could we do that?
Habitat for Humanity is leading the way with the Career Center, creating workers that are going to build our new houses. So I think it's possible. It probably wouldn't be lived or done by the city. It's kind of individual partnerships like Habitat with the Career Center. It's a great model. And it's been working, Mike, right?
Can you do more of it, Mike? That's a great, thank you, Helen, for lifting those guys up.
Can we do more of it? That's a great question. Yeah, maybe. I guess I would say just one of the thoughts is that, yeah, it's working great with the Career Center. Of course, they're going to take a year to build their house when we will build houses, I would say on an average every 4 months with our volunteers. But that's just the nature of how of their day being scheduled out. They only work like 2 hours in the morning and 2 in the afternoon with 2 different groups, and so their scheduling could be a little bit different perhaps. But I will say this, that our houses are appraising around 165, but that doesn't mean we can sell them to a family that can pay us $165,000 to get into the house. So we work with people in the 30 to 80% income bracket of the area median income. And so if you're dealing with people in the, like say in the 50% of the area median income, they're only going to be able to afford like half of a house or even less than that. And so that is a big issue when we talk about like developers coming in and building houses. Well, it's just not going to happen in most parts of the city anyway. And so, it's just the bottom line is that it has to be subsidized quite substantially if we're going to see home ownership happen. Of course, that's not for everyone, and I agree with that. Not everyone's cut out to be a homeowner. But I think the same may be true in rental housing, unless the unit can be large enough to bring the cost down per family. It's going to have to be subsidized in some way, I think. A big factor is the interest rates right now. Like our families could obtain a lot larger mortgages, if the interest rates were either gone or very low. So perhaps a lending institution could be a great resource if they would just eat all of the interest rates. I don't know if that's possible, but but that could be awesome.
Well, thank you, Mike, for that. We are 13 minutes over. We decided it would be only an hour because we know everyone's busy. Talia and Jamie had to drop off already. We invite everybody to come and be a table captain. We're going to have 6 tables. We're expecting, well, we can seat up to 48 in the Valentine room. Next Thursday, there's 2 sessions. They're going to repeat. We're going to refine this slideshow, and we're going to start out with a slideshow and then break up into tables. And if any of you show up, we will ask you to be a table captain and to help with the reporting and to guide the conversation. So the first session's at 2:00, the second's at 5:30. And Darcy and I will both be there, and we'll be providing this presentation, and we're going to decide on what the question is. Maybe it's how does diversity support prosperity in all our neighborhoods? Or we will work on that, and we invite you to come back. It'll be by Zoom on January 8th from 2 to 3. And then I think in February, March, we'll have to do in-person ones because we're going to do some of this priority setting. So
thank you so much for everyone being able to make it. I know this is a rough time of year, and we appreciate the last minute notice being able to be part of this. It's really important to the process.
thank you, everybody. Merry Christmas.
Thank you.
Thank you.